All right. Thank you for having me again, Susan. And as she said, my name is Takesha Waller, and I am with the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff. And what I want to start with doing today is kind of giving you some information about our agency and what we do so that you can kind of understand what to look for and what to know so that you will have the ability to spot the scams that may happen with utility shutoff scams. So I want to start off by telling you about the ORS. The ORS was created with the enactment of Act 175. And what we actually do here is we represent investor owned utilities in the state of South Carolina. And so what we do is we set the utility rates. And the ORS looks at the impact of the consumer and the utility so that we can make sure that you're getting reliable, high quality services from your utility company. Within our agency, we have multiple departments here, and I want to give you a brief information about some of the other departments that we do have in the Office of Regulatory Staff. One department is one that, of course, which I am in, is our Consumer Service Department. And our Consumer Service Department is responsible for mediating between consumers and the utilities in South Carolina, as well as between consumers and the electric cooperatives. So when consumers are having those issues and they feel like they're not able to get them resolved on their own, they can contact our agency, and one of the investigators here will try to mediate between the utility company and the consumer to see if we're able to get a resolution. We resolve a mass majority of complaints through, as I said, the informal process. And by doing it informally, this helps us to avoid costly formal hearing costs that would be accounted for if we had to go to the Public Service Commission. We also have an important role of making sure that we educate consumers to make informed choices so that they understand their rights. And that's a very key part of it because a lot of times consumers are not aware of what their rights are, which opens them up to potential scams and not knowing how to properly deal with their utility company. Another department we have within the Office of Regulatory Staff is our Safety Department. And our Safety Department is responsible for sharing oversight with federal agencies for railroad, natural gas, and pipeline safety here in South Carolina. They also serve as the contact for assisting utilities in the restoration of energy systems during an emergency or disaster and providing information to our South Carolina Emergency Management Division. We also have a transportation department, and our transportation department is responsible for the oversight of licensing, and that includes the enforcement of insurance and rates for motor carriers of passengers, of course, which includes taxis, charter buses, limousine, those non-emergency medical transportation companies, and some of the transportation network carriers such as your Uber and your Lyft. We also have some jurisdiction over household goods movers within South Carolina. Our telecommunications department oversees the South Carolina Universal Service Fund, which you will see as the USF. That's more familiar with people. They're not used to hearing it as it written out, but they provide financial support for telecommunications services. We also manage the dual party relay that provides telephone access to deaf, hearing, and speech impaired. So for those individuals who know someone who has some sort of hearing impairment, we have the ability to help provide equipment for those individuals. We also have our energy office, and our energy office serves as the main energy planning organization for South Carolina to advance South Carolina's energy strategy and policies through education and outreach. They encourage energy efficiency, renewable energy, and clean transportation through a broad range of initiatives. And some of those initiatives include developing the state energy plan, providing the technical assistance to customers and to utility companies, offering financial assistance when it comes to some of those top of the line and front facing renewable energy programs. And they also conduct education and outreach. They're often found in schools, educating our younger kids about energy efficiency and how they can save. And they also maintain an energy data resource, which is a really good resource if you're looking to save energy and try to help save costs. And then our most newest department is our broadband department. And they aim to help provide reliable internet service to underserved areas of the state to help support distance learning, telehealth, and or teleworking. As we knew from the pandemic, when everybody was forced to have to work from home, we realized how important broadband was, because we found out that there were a lot of people who simply did not have access to broadband, and why that was such an important key for the citizens of South Carolina. One of the things that we also wanted to make sure is that you understand what your rights are. And by understanding what your rights are, you know what to look for when you get those potential calls from a potential scammer. So one of the things we want you to know is that you do have the right to establish service. Now, I want to make sure that people fully understand that you have the right to apply for service, but that doesn't necessarily automatically give you the service that you're applying for. There are certain things that the company has to do and certain steps that they have to take in order to make sure that the person that's applying for the service is the person who's actually getting it. So there will be some precautionary things that the company will have to do before they are able to give you service. So you want to make sure that the company cannot deny you from applying for service, but there are certain things that have to be done. For example, the consumer may need to provide access to the property. In those cases, that would be, for example, for a gas customer. They may need to inspect the property to make sure that there's no gas leak or anything that's not properly connected, for the safety of the customer and those around them. You also may be required to pay a deposit. Most people are not aware that there is a deposit that may be required when they apply for service. So I want to make sure that you understand that that does not make that a fraudulent call. It just means that there may be a deposit that is required in order for them to get service. The next slide is disconnections. We sometimes get a lot of questions and confusion about disconnections. So I want you to understand that you have the right to have written notice from the utility prior to being disconnected. But what you also want to make sure that you're aware of is that not less than 10 days prior to termination of service, the utility shall mail a notice of termination to the affected customer. That notice may be inside your bill. A lot of customers we're finding are not aware because they kind of look at what that total amount due or what's actually required. And there may be a notice in there that there may be a payment that was due that was not paid, and therefore they are in jeopardy of disconnection. So we make sure that we let customers know, please open your bill and actually read the information that's inside it in the event that there may be a notice of disconnect on your actual bill. Not more than 2 business days prior to termination of service, the utility shall make reasonable effort by phone or in person to contact the customers that is subject to determination. Now, we want to make sure that you know that you may be in a jeopardy of being disconnected, which is why you want to look at your bill, so that if you get those calls that some scammers are using and putting people in a panic telling you that your services are disconnected, you would have gotten a notice prior to this call that you're receiving from the company. So if you haven't seen a notice in your bill about termination of service and you get a call from someone, you have the right to hang up and contact your utility directly to let them to find out if you are in jeopardy of being disconnected. Not a number that is provided to you by an individual calling, but an actual number for your utility that is actually provided on your bill. You have the right to a payment plan. A lot of times customers will get a call from a scammer demanding immediate payment of all the amount that's past due. The utility company will offer you a payment plan when you are in jeopardy of disconnection. Now, the terms for that is the deferred payment plan that requires the customer to keep the account current and pay no less than 1/6 of the outstanding balance. We want to make sure that customers understand that when they're trying to get a payment arrangement, it may not be the actual terms that they're wanting, but the company will offer you some terms to get that payment made. And I also want to make sure that they're understanding that any agreement to extend or defer payment cutoff by more than 5 days is considered a payment agreement. And that's why I said before, it may not be the terms that the customer may specifically want, but anything past that 5 days is considered a payment arrangement. For meters, we have a lot of questions about meters, and we get a lot of calls sometimes from customers in reference to that. You have the right to have your meter tested for accuracy. Each utility shall at any time when requested in writing, and it doesn't have to be in writing now, the company will allow you to have a phone conversation to make that request if you feel that your meter is not working properly. So in the event that you find that your meter is not working, you contact the company, they can do that test for you. But in the event that it's found that an error in registration of more than 2%, then your bill may increase or decrease accordingly. It depends on what that error may have been. You have the right to have your utility explain the method of how they're reading your bill. And that would be your meter is supposed to be read between 28 and 34 days. Anytime your bill is read outside of that window, if there are extenuating circumstances, that must be communicated to you. You also have a right for an explanation of your bill. The bill should show there are certain parameters that are on each customer's bill so that you know that you're getting an actual bill from your utility company and not something that someone is actually using to try and scam you. The things that are on your bill will be the readings from your beginning and your end reading so that you know what you're actually paying for. The date that your meter is read. The date of the billing or the last date to make that payment before there is some type of penalty will also be included on your bill. It will let you know the number and kind of units metered, which means if that's kilowatts, then that information will be on your bill. The rate schedule that identifies the applicable rate, meaning if you're a general service customer or a residential customer, that information will be on your bill as well. If there happens to be some issue and your bill has to be estimated, that should be clearly marked on your bill as well. And you will also have the total amount that is due and expected to be paid from you to that customer on the bill as well. You have the right to contact your utility at all hours. Your utility company has an emergency or unscheduled interruptions number that you can contact. So they have call centers that are available for you to reach after hours so that you can reach your utility company. We've had a lot of information and a lot of growth coming in the solar regulations. So we do want to kind of give you some information on the new regulations for solar. Section 5827, the Office of Regulatory Staff, along with the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs, who you actually heard from earlier, were designed to develop consumer protection regulations regarding the sale and lease of renewable energy generation facilities pursuant to distributed energy programs. And this is in chapter 40 of this title, and the sellers must comply. We found that we needed to put something in place to protect consumers because there were an influx of solar salespeople going around, and we knew that consumers needed to have an outlet to be able to bounce the information that they're hearing off of. And so this act is put in place to add some safe habits for potential solar customers. Some of the solar trends that we see is misrepresentation and empty promises. If you are interested in solar, we urge customers to make sure that they are doing their due diligence. Make sure that you are asking the questions. Make sure that you know who you are dealing with when you are interested and potentially considering being a solar customer. We are finding that companies are promising savings that the company simply cannot guarantee. They have no way of being able to guarantee you're going to save X number of dollars because there are entirely too many factors involved in that. But we're finding that a lot of those companies are telling consumers this without being able to provide that. Companies are promising incentives and rebates that they simply cannot provide. By telling customers, that you will be able to get panels for X number of dollars, but there are processes that go into that. So they can't just give you specifics in that. Companies are not providing proper or complete paperwork to consumers. We were finding that in the beginning that customers were signing up to purchase solar and were never getting copies of their contract. So they were not aware of what they were actually paying for or what they were actually getting. Some of the solar protections and your consumer rights is we have made sure that companies are not using deceptive marketing. If you're finding that these companies are using those tactics, then you want to make sure that you're making a call and letting the agency know that you have spoken with someone, and these are the types of claims and or information that they have provided to you. Companies must provide total price to be paid by the customer. And if maintenance and or repairs are included, you must be advised of that. So you want to make sure that if you're considering that, you're reading all of the fine print and all of the notes that are involved in that. The company must provide disclosure, if any, estimating savings projected, and must disclose how these savings are calculated. So if they're telling you that you may save X number of dollars, that has to be disclosed, and they have to tell you how they came up with these particular numbers. Customers 70 or older must be provided with written copy of the agreement. As I stated before, we were getting calls that customers were not getting copies of the contracts that they were agreeing to, which was causing a lot of problems for those consumers. Another of the solar protections is company must provide contact information for all parties involved, including those locations that you can call to make complaints. If you are dealing with the company and you don't know the person that you're dealing with, the company that they're working for, and how you can handle complaints, then I would say walk away. You need to have all of this information from that company, and those things send up a red flag when you don't have that information. Companies shall advise customer of their right to cancel. Previous was 3 days, and now there's a 10-day right to cancel with no penalty. So you want to make sure that you're aware if this is something that you're interested in. You want to know what you have available to you, and if you decide later that you're not really wanting to go through with this, then you need to know that you have a right to cancel, contrary to what you may hear. And now we'll go into how to avoid utility scams. One of the common scams that we were getting calls were on-site scammers. These scammers actually just show up at your door pretending to be from a utility company, offering audits or claiming that there is some type of leak. Anytime your utility company has a technician or someone that comes out to your location, they will be properly identified. They will be in a vehicle that is properly marked. They will have identification. They will have on company uniforms. You will know that that particular technician is from whatever utility company that they are coming from. If you have someone to show up unannounced, unsolicited, you have the right to call your utility company to find out if they in fact have a technician in your area or if there has been a leak reported. Do not open the door for someone who claims to be from a utility company. The utility company understands the safeguards and the protection of their consumers. So they will understand you not opening your door to let them into your property if they are there unannounced. Unsolicited calls demanding payment to avoid disconnection of service using prepaid cards, gift cards, cryptocurrency, or wire transfers is not what a utility company does. As I stated previously in the presentation, you would have been notified previously if you had a disconnect in place, or if there happened to be a past due bill that was due. You would have that information in your bills so that you would know what amount you are required to pay. If someone calls you with that, hang up immediately, because we have found that there have been some calls that have gone through where they actually have spoofed, as Bailey said earlier, spoofed the utility company's number. So you have the right to hang up without giving any information, because if the utility company is contacting you, they have that information. Do not give account information or personal information to an unsolicited call that you receive claiming to be from your utility company. Phishing emails claiming to be from the utility seeking bank info by providing phony account numbers. Your utility company will not contact you and ask you to give them your banking information. Again, if these emails are received and you're ever in question, contact your utility company directly. They have access to your account. They can see if there happens to be any type of delinquent payment that's necessary or anything that needs to be done. Call them directly. Any aggressive sales or expensive, unnecessary equipment or repairs. We found that we were hearing that so-called utility company technicians were showing up to individuals' homes, telling them that they could have certain equipment attached to the home to create savings. Your utility company is not sending out unsolicited calls of that nature. When in doubt, I can't reiterate enough, contact your utility company directly. Claims you overpaid or are due a refund just to get your banking information. If you have happened to overpay on your utility company has the ability to either hold that information on a credit on your account, which you will see in your billing, or you can contact them directly. They will not call you to tell you of overpayments. Again, any calls that are coming unsolicited, hang up and call your utility company directly. The claims to give preferential treatment to restore service if a fee is paid. And this is major during storms or major outages. Your utility company does not give preferential treatment for restoration. When there's a major storm and there's a huge outage, the utility companies are working as expeditiously as they can to get all service restored. You will not get your service restored quicker by paying anyone for anything. And I want to make sure, because we were hearing a lot of that coming through in the last storm. Again, I want to reiterate, there is no preferential treatment for restoration by paying a fee. Another way that you can avoid utility scams, always ask for ID. Again, if someone comes to your home claiming to be from the utility company, claiming to there's a leak, ask for ID. And if you're uncomfortable, simply do not talk, do not open the door, call your utility company immediately. Never give out personal information over the phone. That has been reiterated through all of the previous speakers, and I'm sure it will continue to be reiterated. Never give out personal information over the phone. Your utility company would have the information that they need if they are calling you. But when you contact the company themselves, there are certain things that they request from you that you would have just to verify your identification. But they will not call you asking for your personal information. Do not give that out to unsolicited calls. Never provide them with your bill. Your utility company already has that. There would be no reason why a utility technician or a utility employee would come to your home requesting a copy of your bill. They have that information. So never give that information out. If you do, you have just given a potential scammer your personal information. Ask questions. If it doesn't feel right, hang up. Again, call your utility directly. Never give out personal information to an unsolicited call. I can't say that enough. Never agree to pay or send money without doing your own research and follow up. These scammers will call and they will have it in such an urgency that sometimes customers don't stop to think, okay, my utility company would never require that I go and get a gift card in order to pay my utility bill. And then they'll have it sent in a way that can't be traced. And if that money is sent, the company never got that. So they don't have a way of being able to return those funds to you. Never follow up those types of calls and send money anywhere based on an unsolicited call claiming that you have to pay a certain form in order to avoid disconnection of your service. Again, never let anyone in your home unless you can confirm that they are employed by the utility. Never feel awkward for calling the utility to verify before allowing someone to enter your home. Certain utility companies provide services that will allow them to come in and do energy audits to your home. Those services are at the customer's request. If you have not made that type of request from your utility company, there is no reason that someone should be entering your home. If you have someone coming onto your property claiming that that is what they're doing, call your utility company. And if it gets to be aggressive, call your local law enforcement. When you do have complaints, because sometimes you'll get scammers calling that they are calling to complain about a particular utility and how much they're charging. You have the right to have questions or complaints properly and thoroughly investigated by your utility. Those will not be calls that'll come to you. If you find that there's an issue, you contact your utility directly to take care of any types of complaints or issues that you may have with that particular utility. You also have the right to call our office, the Office of Regulatory Staff, if you find out that there's a need for you to file a complaint or you're having an issue with your utility company that you yourself can't seem to get resolved. Contact our agency. Let us help you resolve the issue that you may be having. Once it goes through our agency, if at that point there's still an issue that's not able to resolve, then you have the right to file what's called a formal complaint with the Public Service Commission and request a hearing if you're unable to solve that complaint. And this is why I thought I would add this statement here, because we're in this presentation trying to make sure that we're arming you with the information that you need to protect yourself. And I thought this was a very good message to end my presentation on. I don't want to live in a kind of world where we don't look out for each other, not just the people that are close to us, but anybody who needs a helping hand. I can't change the way anyone else thinks or what they choose, but I can do my bit, and we all can, by sharing the information and by protecting ourselves and helping to protect those around us. Again, my name is Takesha Waller, and here is my contact information. If you find that you need to speak with our agency, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.
Takesha, thank you so much. That was such great and thorough information about what the Office of Regulatory Staff is all about and how you guys can help our citizens here in South Carolina. A lot of good information, some of which I knew, some of which I didn't already know. So thank you for that. I'm sure it was really great for our listeners and viewers to hear that. So thanks very much. Thanks for what y'all do at the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff.